Okay, hi everyone. This is my disclaimer slide for my presentation titled Caring for Kids, an Open Conversation about Vaccines, where I'll be discussing vaccination in children to a group of local mothers here in Arkansas. My name is Anna Snyder. I'm an environmental health specialist, and I'm so excited to give this talk today. So, we will explore three topics today. The first one will be how do vaccines work? The second will be vaccine safety. And then the third topic will be how to find the facts so that you can make an informed decision for you and your family. So, here we will discuss how vaccines work. This will be just a general overview. Um, First, vaccines start with a piece of bacteria or virus that is introduced into the body. Um, this is formally called an antigen, and vaccines contain other ingredients in addition to the bacteria or virus that we will discuss in more detail in subsequent slides. The next step after the bacteria or virus is introduced into the body is that the immune system will recognize the foreign material and will produce protective agents to fight the bacteria or virus. These are formally called antibodies, and they have a memory component, as we will see in the next step. So I just wanted to note here that the production of these antibodies, one, takes time, and two, takes a good immune system to be able to produce these. So the last step in this process. So remember, we've introduced a bacteria or virus into the body. That's the shot of the vaccine. The immune system says, hey, I don't recognize that stuff. And the immune system will produce antibodies against it. And the last concept of the vaccine is that if the individual is ever exposed to the bacteria or virus again, the immune system is already primed and ready to protect that person against the bacteria or virus. So, as I mentioned in step two, the antibodies have a memory component. And so they remember if and when the bacteria or virus is reintroduced. And so it'll immediately start producing antibodies, start protecting the individual. And if there's anyone who likes graphics, which I do, here's one from the American Academy of Pediatrics. They just kind of discuss what I already discussed here on the right. The vaccines essentially teach the immune system how to recognize a virus or bacteria so that their body knows how to respond if and when they are exposed again. And so, like I mentioned, the memory component, which is very important here, um, that allows individuals to build long-term protection against certain diseases. And in this graphic, they discuss a concept called community immunity, which we will talk about more on the next slide. So just continuing with the same first topic, how do vaccines work? We will discuss the concept of community immunity here. And community immunity, also known as herd immunity, you might see it like that other places. It occurs when most people are immune to a disease. And this can be achieved through vaccination of enough individuals so that the spread of disease from person to person is decreased, and therefore the disease transmission will eventually be stopped. Or being immune to a disease can occur if you were infected with the disease and you produce antibodies against it. But for most of the diseases that we have vaccines for, they are severe, and we wouldn't want the entire population to contract that disease so that they can be immune. So that's where these vaccines come into play and allow us to um, make it to where majority of individuals are immune to a certain disease, and so we can limit the person-to-person spread. And this image here on the right might help you to understand this a little more. So the blue individuals are individuals who have been vaccinated, and then the red individuals are individuals who are infected with the disease, and then the yellow are individuals at high risk for the disease, or they've not been fully vaccinated. And so in this community the majority of individuals are blue. So those are people who have been vaccinated. And for this infected person here, this red individual, they're surrounded by enough blue individuals who are vaccinated that the likelihood of them spreading this disease to one of the yellow individuals is decreased. Whereas if most of the population wasn't vaccinated and we had more yellow individuals, let's say one like here in between the red and the yellow, then the odds of this person um, getting the disease would be higher, and then they could spread to this person. And that's how viruses, such as measles, that was previously eradicated, come back and start becoming prevalent again. Is all it takes is one person to be infected with the disease, to get introduced into the population, and then come into contact with individuals who are not immune to the disease. And that's how um, the disease starts to spread again. And so, after that long explanation, you might be thinking, why is this important to me as a mother? Well, community immunity is important for children who are too young to receive a vaccination. If they're immunocompromised and they're not able to produce enough antibodies to mount an immune response, or if they're just unable to receive a vaccine for whatever reason, the community immunity confers protection for these individuals because, like we mentioned, with community immunity, if enough people are vaccinated, they will protect others who can't get vaccinated or have not been vaccinated yet because the spread of disease is decreased and therefore transmission is slowed down. So now we'll move on to talking about vaccine safety. And this will be just the basis of vaccine safety, kind of how they're developed and what goes into it. And I know that this slide is kind of a lot here, but I think it really encompasses how elaborate the vaccine development process is. And I hope that this slide can give you guys some peace of mind when you think about these vaccines, and just know that they're extensively studied and there's many checks and balances in place to ensure that these are safe for the patient and that they are effective. So just general overview, it starts here. They discover a disease. There's lots of research. Preclinical studies are done, typically on animals. And if they can um, prove that the vaccine is safe in the development and that it can produce an immune response, what they're creating, the bacteria or virus that they're isolating, then it moves on to clinical trials, and those are done on humans. And there's three phases to clinical trials. Phase one looks at, is it safe for humans? Phase two looks at, is it effective in humans? And then phase three will take a large amount of people and they'll look at the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine. And if the clinical trials get approved, so they've ensured safety, they've ensured effectiveness, then the FDA will approve and then they will start regulating the vaccine. And this includes testing the quality of each batch or lot of the vaccine that is made to ensure that, each dose remains reliable, it remains safe, it has what is supposed to be in there. So after the FDA approves the clinical trials and starts regulating the vaccine, then the ACIP, which is the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which is a group of medical and public health experts, they will develop recommendations for the vaccine. And they look at questions such as how safe and effective is the vaccine when given at certain ages. So, like at 2 to 6 months versus 18 months plus. Um, they look at how serious the vaccine preventable disease is. So, and also how many individuals would get the disease if there was no vaccine. So these are all um, practical questions. So, once you've proven that the vaccine is safe and effective, then you need to look at how beneficial is it, how relevant is it, and the ACIP looks at those questions. And then lastly, this is after they've kind of got those guidelines in place. The United States has multiple systems to ensure that the safety of a vaccine remains even after it's been approved. And some of these um, systems include the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, the Vaccine Safety Data Link System, the Clinical Immunization Safety Assessment Project. All of these systems work together to just make sure that these vaccines remain safe. The VAERS is where individuals can go and report any adverse events they have to a vaccine. The vaccine safety data link is something that physicians can use to analyze data. And um, this graphic that we went through is from the CDC. They are also a big part of vaccine safety and regulations and um, making sure that it's safe for the population. So I know this slide was a lot, but in this slide, just continuing with vaccine safety, I just wanted to acknowledge some common concerns that individuals have regarding the safety of a vaccine. Um, I'm sure that at least one of you have seen something like this on social media, or maybe a coworker has mentioned one of these topics. So I just wanted to acknowledge them here. This is not what this presentation is really about. This presentation is just to give you ladies just a broad overview and base of knowledge on that how vaccines work and the safety mechanisms that are put in place to ensure they're safe. But I will touch on these really quick, really briefly. So mercury is one of those additional ingredients that were in vaccines. This is an older ingredient. Currently, none of the single dose vaccine preparations given to infants contain any mercury now. Um, in the end of this presentation, we'll talk about how to find credible sources and credible information. And so if you want to further explore these topics, I feel confident that with the information I'll present at the end of this slide, that you will be able to find credible resources to further look into this. And I can also provide research articles if you guys would like to read more on your own time. The presence of aluminum in some vaccines is also something that individuals have raised concerns about, but the aluminum is in the vaccine to boost the body's immune response. So it does have a beneficial role in the vaccine. And aluminum is a naturally occurring substance in soil, water, the air, and it leaves the body within a couple of weeks. It doesn't get stored. So here's a graphic here on the right by the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia about aluminum and just three things to know if you like images again. But just remember, this is a naturally occurring substance. There's actually studies that show that baby formula, has more aluminum in it than the vaccines that are given to children at the same age. So, lastly, the correlation of vaccines with autism. There are numerous scientific studies that have concluded that there's no link between vaccines and autism. And I would be happy to share those with you guys um, for you to read more about, and I can do that. So, the last thing we'll talk about in regard to vaccine safety are side effects. So, some of the most common include pain and swelling where the vaccine was given, mild fever. Again, we're inducing an immune response when we're giving a vaccine. So, um, when you have a fever, when you get sick, that's your immune system responding to something foreign. It's making those antibodies, it's going to work. Another common symptom is fussiness. So the baby can be lethargic, just its body is working hard to fight an infection. So these are some of the most common mild symptoms. Severe allergic reactions are rare. They occur about 1 or 2 cases for every 1 million vaccinations. They typically happen very quickly after the vaccine is administered, sometimes even with the child still at the doctor's office. And some of those severe allergic reaction symptoms include difficulty breathing, dizziness, weakness, fast heartbeat, a rash all over the body, facial swelling. Um, but like I said, these are very rare, 1 or 2 cases for every million. And if you're concerned about your child possibly having one of these reactions, which is a fair concern. And reading these, you're like, oh, I would never want this to happen to my child. Um, they, um, these reactions subside, and they typically can happen when the child is still in the doctor's office. So keep that in mind. And just again, they're a rare side effect, but I do want to acknowledge that this is a scary thing to think about as a mother. So now we'll start the discussion of the last topic of this presentation. It's about how to find the facts, because one of the most challenging tasks as a parent is to decipher what information can be trusted, what cannot be trusted, because we all want to do what's best for our child. So when you are looking at information, whether that's information you see on social media or TV or from a coworker or just from your community, here are some questions you may want to ask yourself when you're evaluating health information. So, um, these questions include: what is the source? Who is the expert? And what are the facts? And so we will explore these questions further in the next slide. So, for the first question, what is the source? So, the last three letters in a website address can tell you a lot about what type of organization or company has set up the site that you're on. .gov is typically government, .org is typically nonprofit, .edu is academic or education based, and then lastly, .com is typically commercial websites, and these are not necessarily a source of reliable information. Not to say that these first three are just absolutely reliable sources all the time, but these first three are more likely to be credible sources than a website ending in .com. So when I am looking up something that, I'm trying to fact check something that I saw on the internet or heard from a friend, I typically try to go with a website from one of these three. The next question that you can ask yourself is, who's the expert? So I've seen a lot of podcasts out recently where someone will interview a doctor or a researcher, and you hear them say, "Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a researcher." An important thing to know is, what are their credentials? Another important question is, what expertise do they have on the topic that they're discussing? They may be a doctor, but do they study pediatrics? Do they study immunology? Areas that are relevant, important to what you're trying to gain information about. Are there any conflicts of interest? Are they working for a company that benefits their expert opinion? Are they being paid? I know these are bad, but they're just things to think about, because as I mentioned previously, there's just so much information out there that, you have to find ways to kind of decipher through all of it and figure out what is credible and what is not, so that you can make informed decisions. So lastly, what are the facts? So confirmed findings, or facts, are findings that have been replicated and they've been reviewed over time. They can be repeated. And so something that you'll see a lot is the term new, a new finding about X, or a new treatment for X. Just because it's a new finding doesn't mean that it's necessarily an improved finding. And it also doesn't mean that this new finding has been replicated, reviewed. So just keep that in mind when you see the term new. What are the facts about what I'm trying to gain information about? So here are my references. A lot of my information came from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Um, because of the increasing rates of individuals not wanting to vaccinate their children, they have come out with a lot of resources for um, mothers and families to find information and just educate themselves and make them feel better about this decision that they are needing to make. Here are the last three. And um, one great resource for all of you mothers is your pediatrician. I hope that all of you have a pediatrician that you have a good relationship with. They all want what's best for your child as much as you do. That's why they went to school for as long as they did. They want to keep your child safe as much as you want to keep your child safe. So um, instead of feeling the pressure of trying to decipher between all the information you see online, a good resource that you can use and reach out to is your pediatrician. So I didn't have that in my slide of how to determine factual information, but your pediatrician is a great resource. So thank you so much.